Patanjali concretely say that how to deal with our mind, our perceptions is important. The perception from the outside world to the inside, that means our mind, perceive correctly when the minds are without any filter. And this filter on the mind, colored mind or chitta vrittis, are conditioned by our sensory perception, means eye, nostril, tongue, skin and ear. From unlimited times we are perceiving a lot of information. So when our senses are perceiving informations, this information can creating, before lending to the mind, attachment and aversion. Another form of, I could call, desire, cravings. So if I like certain things, automatically, okay, my eyes like to see the candle. So this is kind of attachment. So the eyes, and then before the mind is creating some sort of a filter. And this is in a form of the impressions laying down in our system, so that every time I look to the candle, automatically the craving will come more on the top of that. So the mind not perceiving things, the mind perceiving what already preconditioned, the craving, the desire. That's already talked a lot of months of that. And first we need to identify what is our attachment and aversion, and to let go. And when the moment your attachment and aversions to are letting go and dissolve, 4 types of liberations are developing: vitarka, vichara, ananda and asmita. These 4 types of the liberations are concretely with the object. If I am attached to the candles and let go of the candle, I'm experiencing some sort of liberation. If I'm attached to the cheesecake, I'm let go of my cheesecake, I'm attaining some sort of liberation. If I have aversion toward the Berlin weather, today the weather is beautiful, I don't be happy, just that is my liberation. This is how I'm seeing. I didn't realize until Lisa said today's beautiful weather. I didn't really put any attention that. This is how sort of our liberation, how we are freeing ourselves from the condition. But later, Patanjali is also said in the Sutra number 18, we also can liberate without the object. We call nirbija samadhi. Nirbija samadhi means you're liberating without any kind of objects connected to your senses. And these liberations need some sort of a clarity or awareness, observing the gap between this attachment and aversion. I give you an example. Let's say you have a craving towards sugar. You cannot have a cravings 24 hours, 7 times a week, like a whole year. When you're observing, when you have this attachment, or maybe some of you have also like a bad craving, for example, smoking. I have friends, a lot of friends, I hate that, but I'm repeating it again and again, but they're not progressing. But these kind of things, I'm not smoking 24 hours. I like to smoke certain times. But these certain times are comes and goes, comes and goes, comes and goes. So let's say this craving comes, and the moment the cravings are come down a little bit underlines underneath of this basic line, this is a time you don't have this craving. This is what called gap. Same like for the sugar, or it also can be applicable for the thought process and emotion. Let's say you have attached towards the sadness. Some people like to have attachment towards certain kind of emotions. These emotions can be 24 hours impossible. The emotion comes, and then there are moments emotions are not there, but we're not aware of this gap. When the emotion comes, and then we suffer. When the emotion not there, we just take for granted. And this is we call gaps. And these gaps are without any kind of a concrete object. We call nirbija, means without any seed. And also in our day-to-day life, from the moment we are born until right now, we are going through some phase, the breath. Our breath, inhale, always have transit, before the exhalation start, they always have this little pause or little transitions. Naturally, between the inhalations and exhalation, they have a little pause. Between the exhalation and inhalation, they always have a little pause. And this gap can be very tiny gap, like a little crack or little space. But in a yoga practice, we can expand this gap so that we can explore through this gap to get also liberated. And the good thing is, if you are practicing observing more and more this gap, expand the gap not necessarily in the breath, the gap can be between the thoughts, the gap between the emotions. So if I said, okay, now I wake up today morning, I have some certain kind of emotion, happy feelings, and these emotions cannot be sustained there forever. You might recognize observing more and more, these emotions will come, crumble, and then you will come to this space. Before you clearly see this space, maybe another emotion comes on the top of that. So, but this emotion, let's say emotion A, always go down, make a little break before it's rising up again. The same particular emotion. Let's say emotion connected to irritations. Irritated, why today Berlin weather like so beautiful. Okay, you irritated. You know, before the irritation come back again, probably there's a little gap. And in a yoga sadhana, we need to observe this gap, because through this gap, if you go deeper, you can liberate not only that particular emotion, you can liberate everything. But it's difficult. It's not easy. That's why Patanjali first put, we need to liberate with the objects, and then while you're doing with the objects, you can include this also without object. Objectless, in Tibetan or Buddhist terminology, they use objectless shamatha. That means you're concentrating or meditating on the objectless. There are no object there, but you are resting on your mind on that space. And then when you go through it, you can get also liberation. Okay, for today's practice, I want to be observing more easier on our breath, and then later we're going to contemplate with this particular theme. Okay? In the beginning, we just observing how naturally you have a pause between the breath, and then intentionally we include this pause. Good? Anybody pregnant here? Any pregnancy? Okay. Okay, then if you feel it's too much, you don't need to hold so long. Be as natural as possible. Okay? Let me start the practice.